You're listening to another ambitious entrepreneurnetwork.com podcast, the voice for entrepreneurs and small business. Now, onto the show.
This is Women in Leadership Podcast, featuring success insights from women around the globe. Now, over to your host, Anne-Marie Cross.
And welcome to another episode of Women in Leadership Podcast, brought to you by the Influence Alliance. And yes, I'm your host, Anne-Marie Cross. Now, my guest today says customer success is more important than customer service. Joining me on today's show is Nici Bickley. Now, Nici, she is a self-proclaimed software nerd and has an addiction to learning. Me too. With over 20 years in the corporate arena, she was working for a software company. She climbed to the top levels of management. Now, experiencing company growth from 4 staff to over 500, company takeovers, venture capital investment, and finally a company sale. Now, whilst working for the new company, Nici realized that it was time for a new challenge, preferring the smaller company culture, being hands-on and pivotal in small business success. And really what she just wanted to do, what she loved, she was doing again. So Nici branched out to create her very own company, helping to simplify software, social media, and SEO for small business. Now, with a background in tech, teaching and customer service, she's been able to explain SEO in simple terms. And now she has over 10,000 followers. I will get her to share her secrets with us a bit later on. Now, to balance her life, she also is an avid seascape and marine animal painter. Now, on today's show, Nici's going to share, never regret anything that you do because it all helps in the end. She's going to talk about tough times, giving you the opportunity to show your character. Invest in experts is what she says, so that you can get your head out of the trench. Welcome to the show, Nici.
Hi, everyone. Really glad to be here. Hope I can give some tips along the way.
Absolutely. You've got some great insights to share, and we'll also give you some opportunity to share some of the expertise around SEO, around technology, because as we mentioned, we were talking before we went live, there's so many women that there's 2 areas that I often find that, I don't know much about that. It's around finance and around technology. And you're here to bust through that, because once people get a grip on technology, there's so many opportunities that open up for them, particularly in their own business, and even if they're working in the corporate space, because technology, when we leverage it the right way, can certainly help us in so many different areas. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm pleased to be helping people in that way, because I do think you're right. A lot of people get nervous and they get a bit scared sometimes of taking this step into some of the technology. You know, some people know they need to be in Facebook, for example, but are scared. You know, I've had people say to me, am I going to be posting on my personal or my business? How do I know? I get a bit scared, and they're too scared to do it just because they're scared they're going to be putting it on the wrong one.
Yeah.
And I find some people just need me to be over their shoulder.
Yes.
I call it over the shoulder help, where I help them set things up, and then kind of I'm over their shoulder just for a little while they get their kind of training wheels off. So yeah, I like to help in that way if I can.
Yeah, brilliant. And of course, if they're not following Nici over on LinkedIn, please feel free later on, Nici, to share what your LinkedIn profile is, because I know that you share some valuable tips in your documents and so forth, making it really simple to understand. And it's one of those things, I call it layered learning. You layer your learning, you learn something, you apply it, then you learn something new. And before you know it, when you look backwards, you realize how far you have come. So we'll dive into that, and we'll go some of those things over a little bit later on. But let's talk about never regret anything you do. It all helps in the end. And as I mentioned in the introduction, you've got diverse expertise, and I'm sure that wealth and depth of knowledge and experience is certainly supporting you, even in bringing value to the environment and to the clients that you currently work with in your own business. Yes?
Yes, definitely. I really believe in this phrase because it happened even early in my career. I did my science degree in maths and computing. I went out and I worked at National Mutual for a while as a programmer in the superannuation area. And then I got retrenched and thought, I'll become a teacher. And so I did my degree in teaching, and then I went off and did my teaching at a high school for maths, and didn't have a great experience at that. I love one-to-one teaching with children, but the group teaching wasn't for me. And then I branched into a business centre teaching adults, which was a much better experience. I got Baileys for teaching someone something, and they were just so excited about it. They gave me a bottle of Baileys, and I thought, why have I not been doing this before? So found the difference. And then I decided I was going to go and start my own business. And I was talking to one of my friends, and I said he should outsource his training to me from his business. And he said, you have to know super. And I said, actually, I do know super, because when I was programming at National Mutual, that's what I was involved in. And he went away and thought about it, and then came back to me and offered me a position at his company. And then I stayed for 20 years with him. And I think back to, it's all those little bits that came together at the right time. And I feel sometimes people change corporate paths. They might be on one ladder and then they change over to another ladder, and they sometimes regret, why didn't I change earlier, and that sort of thing. And I thoroughly believe that it all comes together at the right timings. So I had my superannuation, I had my teaching. It all just came together at the right time to come into the company for me. Yeah. And it happens a couple of times through life. I really believe that.
Something else that you mentioned, and I love the way that you've pulled that together, and it's absolutely right. So often we can get stuck in the regret, in the shame, that I should have done that, why we end up beating ourselves up, which is a whole other cycle and process. However, what you've said is actually take a step back and look at all of the learnings and bring that together. And let's face it, we can make a decision that we think later, I wish I hadn't have done that, but there's always a learning from that. But here's something that you mentioned, I want to point this out in case people have missed it. You were teaching in certain environments. Some environments were better suited to you, like, for instance, children. Unfortunately, we would love to be able to sit them on the floor at their desk and they don't say it. These young human beings continue, but then you've got adult learners who you said you did a lot. You could see that they were implementing and learning and therefore got a lot more out of it. So how often do we neglect just to recognize the strengths and ability and things that we quite enjoy? We're just not doing them in the right environment. We need to find the right environment. Yeah.
Exactly. Much different environment for me. Yeah.
Absolutely. Talk about some of the tough times that you say gives you the opportunity to show your character building. Whilst we're in the tough time and the challenge, often, we would rather, if I could avoid that, I would. But looking back, I'd imagine that some of the tough times that you've gone through really have provided you with an opportunity to grow, learn, and develop. The reason I'm asking this, Nici, is that often when we look at a situation, it can, if I can use the term, it can make you or it can break you. And the decision is yours. What's it going to do? Share a little bit more about that, because so many people around the globe are faced with some challenging times.
Yeah, and especially at the moment, I think everyone is faced with that challenge, or in the last year in particular. I think my first experience really was when I went through depression. And so years ago, almost 20 years ago now, I went through my first bout of depression, and I'm one of the lucky ones that came out the other side. And I like talking about my experience, because I think everyone needs to understand that it's not a bad thing. Mental health is something we need to focus on and take care of, and it's not something you should have to hide. So it's one of the things that I don't regret. And a lot of people might find that a little bit strange, but I don't regret it, because it gave me the strength now and the character that I have now. I think it actually built me in a lot of ways and made me much more aware of being able to step out and overcome things. So I like to think of there's a little story about boiling water, an analogy, that we all face the same thing. And the boiling water is the stress or the problems that we go through in life. And people can be one of three things. They can be a carrot, and when the carrot goes in the boiling water and you leave it in there long enough, the carrot goes soft and then it starts to fall apart. You can be the egg, and the egg goes into the boiling water and it hardens up on the inside and tough on the inside. It's very tough and not as good anymore. And then the third thing is you can be the coffee beans, and the coffee beans go in the water and they infuse the water and make it all better and make it a coffee, something that a lot of people enjoy. And make it a better thing. And I like that analogy. And every time I go through a bad experience now, I always think of that this is my opportunity to show how I can step up afterwards, how I can get back up, and that shows my character. That shows much more than anything else in your life, I think, is how you step back up. Yes. So it's something to tell yourself, I think, if you just say, this is an opportunity, if it's a problem. And the pandemic is one. If you step up and you can keep your business running after the pandemic, you've got to be proud of that. That's a story that you can tell your family, and that's a story you can be really proud of, that you did get through it. Now, I know there's a lot of people that unfortunately won't get through it, but once again, it's something that they can say, I tried and geez, I did a really good job. It's just unfortunate the circumstances didn't let me come through, but it made me tougher for next time.
Yes,
that's important.
That you bring, for sure. And of course, we're speaking to Nici Bickley. She is a self-proclaimed software nerd with an addiction to learning, and her goal is to help simplify software, social media, SEO for small business. Something you said there, Nici, and by the way, if you're watching the live stream and you have a question or a comment, please go ahead and share that, because I can bring that into the show. And for those of you who are listening to the audio version, come on over to a live stream, because that gives you the opportunity to interact with the guest live on air. Nici, you were talking earlier about, tough times and opportunities for learning. When you reflect back over some of those times, and you mentioned, you expressed that you did have depression, and can I just say to you, commend you for sharing that. The other day I was speaking to someone and he said the transparency and the openness to share failures, successes, in your instance, your the mental health and depression, and how you held on to certain things. I'm going to share what that was, so that for people who are listening who may be struggling with that, they can grab onto the hope that you had. But it's important to share, because I think so many of us always see the success stories, always see the bright, shiny pictures of the afters. We forget to share what it was like, the struggles that we went through, the mountains that we had to climb, the lowest valleys, those kind of things. And we have this illusion that everything is easy, but it's not. But it's the grit, it's the determination, it's the tenacity that, not today, and that there is always hope. What was that for you? Was it a decision that you made? Was it people that you surrounded yourself with that had you go, you know what, this is not going to break me, this is going to strengthen me? What was it for you, reflecting back?
I was very lucky at the time. My mum stepped in, so I have a fantastic family. And a great group of friends as well. I had a couple of friends that I rate really highly, a couple of my friends, because they were there at the time for me. And they just kept coming back. And that's something that I think, if you do go through depression or experience friends or family with depression, it's just continuing to be there. Not that you might not actually pull them out of the situation. It's really kind of something they have to do themselves. But you can be there as a bit of support. And if you just continue to be there, no matter what, that you just keep coming back. And I had one friend who just kept saying, can we go out? Would you like to come for lunch? And she just kept at it. Some people will fall by the wayside and give up. But other friends will just keep in there, and they're the ones that you really believe in afterwards. That's important to me.
And sometimes, and this is from the point of view of the people who are around you. Sometimes they don't know how to respond or what to do because
Mm,
they think that they need to solve the issue or be the solution to the problem. But actually, in actual fact, it's not often, is it? You're not looking to have your problem solved at all. And in fact, that can provide even more layers to issues. It's just being there, isn't it?
that's
A
it. It's
shoulder,
being there.
not being judged by and not being problem solved, if you will, just going out, having coffee, going for a walk, whatever that might be.
Yeah. And I suppose so in my case, my depression is a continual one. So I describe it as you're on a mountain, and some people fall off the mountain with depression from an event or a life experience or something that just happens at the time, and they fall off the mountain and go down to the bottom. Others of us experience bits in our personality that kind of make us maybe a bit perfectionism, problems with our self-worth, and we just slide down the mountain slowly, and suddenly we're at the bottom of the mountain. And to me, it was that I actually had to not look up at the mountain and see how high it is and get off put, because you think it's too overwhelming. And that's part of the problem with the depression. And it's just to focus on your feet and slowly climb the mountain. And, I go up and down the mountain different times, but I hope I don't go as far as I did each time. I try and not to slide back as far. And that's what I keep in mind all the time.
So what you've done is you've got beautiful resource, a toolkit that you've hoisted over your shoulder. And every time you've learned, put that learning in the kit, and then you can take that out and say, what do I need today? There's something in what you've just said. Often we look at the entirety. And that's what I find too. When I look at an entirety of something, I start to feel overwhelmed. And that overwhelm, whatever you're feeding, it can seem more and more heavy and heavy. So what I tend to do is break it down. Look, I can't control everything. Let's chunk it down. Let's look at this first. And when you look at it in that way, you realize, oh, well, I can impact that. I can do that. I can influence that. And often, that perfectionist aspect, and I think we can all relate to that, certainly can impact. We've got a comment here. Kim, thank you, to keep going. Yeah, it's so important to keep going.
True.
And knowing there's hope. And here's, I remember one time many years ago, one of my mentors actually said, because I had to inspire hope and possibilities, very much aligned to my vision and my mission. It's really what I stand for. If I haven't even inspired someone and given them hope and kind of planted a seed, I haven't done my job. It's just who I am. She said, oh, hope is a bit wishy-washy. Well, guess what? Hope is not. It is so important. And there is always hope, isn't there? No matter how tough things may seem. Would you agree, looking back over your life and where you are now?
I definitely think so. I think at your down points, you have to have that hope. You have to have that feeling that things will get better. And they will. You just have to get past a little or big blip in your life, and just keep going. And I feel for so many of the younger kids these days that go through depression, because they haven't had as much life experience to know that things can get better. So I really, teenage suicide is so sad for all of us, I think, with something we need to focus on a bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something else that you mentioned, and that was around how important it was just to be someone there to support, saying, hey, if you do need someone to talk to, I'm here, whatever that may be. And we don't always have to have all of the answers, but we just don't know. We may be connected to someone who is able to provide support. And I think moving forward, you're talking about tough times, how important it is not to isolate, but rather to find people that you can surround yourself with, who can speak that word of encouragement, that word of hope, that would say, Nici, take some time out. I'm here for you. Let me know when you're ready to go out there, but I'm thinking of you and I've got your back. That kind of thing really helps immensely. Would you say that?
I'd agree with that. And also just to go back to the simple things, just to go back to just having a laugh. that's something that a lot of us lose in our lives. Like they say that, I'm trying to remember the figures, but it's something like children laugh, hundreds of times a day, and adults laugh something like 7 times a day, and we lose that laughter, and that was one of the things that I actually went through. I went to Laughter Club, a little bit down my progression. My first thing was I found a book that actually helped me through the process that just seemed right for me at the time, and it helped me remind yourself of your achievements before you start setting new goals. To really, really take the time to actually come up with, and over a week I had to come up with 50 things that I'd achieved in the last year. And that's really hard to do when you're first faced with it. But if you just gradually get 1 or 2, then you think of another one, and then you think of another one, and you start to actually appreciate what your life is, and that you have good things happening.
Yes.
That's important. And then you can start to laugh about it.
Yeah, sometimes you forget because, sometimes what can happen is, when you've got that tendency to want excellence, to that perfection,
Yes.
you've got the bar set so high, anything that you do, because we can't achieve that, seems like, well, I failed, or there's another thing that I'm not good at. And so when you start to remind yourself, actually, that thank you, or that whatever it might be, that list, as you're starting to develop it more and more, you realize that these are all things that you have contributed, that there's meaning and fulfillment. So much so that, do you think by focusing too much on that perfectionism and the things that we don't have, we're forgetting to look at what we do and what we can be grateful for? Is that something that
Exactly.
you've learned?
Yes, definitely. I learned to be grateful for the important things in my life, and start to remind myself of what actually is important. I think that's something else that we don't do. We start to think that, getting that report right and looking right, and we had a typo in it, that was important, and it's not. It's not at all. The important thing, and I always remind myself of this, is your family and the love you have. That's the most important thing in life. Love is much more important than anything else. So if you've got a great family, then you're swimming. You're doing really well in life. That's important.
Yeah,
So
love that. Thank you. So, of course, if you're just joining us today, we're speaking with Nici Bickley. She loves software. She loves technology. And, of course, her goal is to help businesses and with individuals as well, I'm sure, to simplify software, social media, and SEO for small business. And, of course, that is something that many people struggle with. We will tap into some of her expertise in a moment. But I think this is such an important conversation because, businesses, when they are faced with challenges, and individuals run businesses, of course, and then, of course, there's families that attach to those businesses. This conversation, I think, is one that is so important. It's one that continues to be one, I'm hoping, that will be on the lips of many. And how do we get through this? How can we support one another? Something that you said, and I really want to emphasize this, is where do we place the importance of our self-worth and our identity? Because if we place this on the job well done, on the perfection, on, well, when I do this and this, then I'm worthy, we've got to strip that back, don't we, Nici, and get right back to that simplicity, is that you're enough. You don't need to achieve all of the KPI. When I say KPIs, the tops this and the tops that. When we put our bar too high, and that we are only validated in the feedback that we get from others, we're going to be unfortunately disappointed, aren't we? Because things go up and down, don't they?
Exactly. And you made a point there, being validated by others, and that's something that I've struggled a little bit over the time with. I have certain people that I think they've got to say that I've done well, and that'll be, then I know I've done well. And I've actually realized that shouldn't be the case. I need to feel that I did a good job, and if that's the case, then that's the important bit. And I've got a friend now who is struggling with it, and I'm trying to help her get past it, because she keeps wanting validation from someone, and I keep saying, their opinion doesn't really matter.
Yeah, that's right.
And it does cycle into people's psyches that they start to really focus on that. So focus on what you think, and that's important. And
Learning
getting the
how to use
balance.
that. Yeah, so true.
Yeah.
I remember when my children were younger, I would often say, "Give yourself a pat on the back." To really, not from me, to do that. Although having said that, my son will often come, "Do you love me, mum?" So we had this 28, 29,
Oh,
27-year-old, beg your pardon, that says that. So, never, and that's another point, I guess, too. Tell your friends regularly, and not from a point of view where, it's just, you just don't know that word, that kind word, that hand that you lend, that random act of kindness, if you will, can go a
yeah.
long way. Can go a long way. Nikki, you also want to talk a little bit about investing in experts so you can get your head out of the trench. This is so important too for people who are struggling sort of mentally. There's nothing wrong with it needing to do that if you need some support. And also in business too, stop struggling with the area that you know that you need support in. So speak a little bit about this.
I think it's so true, because you end up losing time, you end up losing money, and you end up losing probably your sanity in the process as well, because you struggle through and you try and get this thing done. And a lot of people do it in areas that they just shouldn't be doing it. Like, anything, your contracts, you need to get an expert involved. You need to have it done right, because down the track, it can come back and bite you if you don't do it right. You need to have an expert when it comes to your accounts. Get someone in that helps you get the right tax situation. Make sure it's right from the start, so it doesn't, wreck it in the end, because you don't know what you don't know. You can investigate and you can try and learn about something and do it all yourself, but there might be some area you don't know. And SEO is one of those examples as well, because there's so many things that you can do wrong that you don't realize. And in SEO, then Google can penalize you and actually push your business right down the list, just because you've done something that you didn't realize at the time was wrong.
Yeah.
So I think that's important.
I love that. So that beautifully segues into, let's spend a little bit of time. I've got your LinkedIn profile here up on the screen. And, yeah, that's right. Well, I thought, let's just do that, because I want to show people some of the things that you have recently been sharing. But so Nici Bickley, Nici Bickley, go and connect with her there. But if we have a look at some of your posts, Nici, particularly, actually the documents, I think really, like, here's just an SEO tip that you've given, or 7 tips actually, which is really validates what I said earlier about that. Let's talk about SEO just for a little bit, because this is really an area that you specialize in, and it's so important because now visibility, this is one of the things that many businesses need to get in front of their ideal clients, and this is such a great way to do that. So what are some of the things that we need to know about SEO?
Okay. SEO is important for your business, and a lot of businesses know they need to create a website and put a website up. They're all told that, so they go and get their website done and put up, and they think that the SEO has been done on it. But a lot of web developers just do a cursory SEO. They do the SEO on the metadata, which is how it displays in Google. But there's so much more to SEO. We have things like making sure your speed is correct and fast, because Google really cares about that. In fact, the next update for Google in May, they're putting even more emphasis on mobile speed. So you have to make sure that your website is fast. So you need it to be under 3 seconds. That's the aim that you want for your site, and as small as possible. You need to make sure that the keywords are in place. So a lot of people do put focus on keywords. That one has been put around the place a lot, and it's true. You need to have the right keywords showing in your headings, in your URLs, You need to have the right keywords or synonyms through your documents, your blogs, to get people to your site, because Google really only knows about what your business is about and what it should show people in the searches from the words that are on your page. And I had a photography business that had a great looking photo on its front screen and its homepage. It looked lovely profile there, but they had no words. So Google had no idea what their page was about to show them up for people. So a lot of people will get the web page up and then get a bit disappointed that they're not getting traffic from it. And the reason is because
why aren't they getting clients?
they aren't getting clients. It's down the page. It's on page 100 of the search engines, and we all know we only go to page 1 and maybe to page 2 of searches. So you've got to be up in the top of the searches. So that's SEO is so important, getting there. And there are other things that I do, things behind the scene. I kind of have a language, the data structured schema language that we talk to Google in and kind of explain who you are. And then Google needs to know that you're a real business. It's very important to them that you're a real business. There's so many scamming kind of businesses out there. So they need to know you're a real business, and they know that by the people that are linking to you. So if you're being linked to from a directory, it knows, oh, there's a few directories that know of you, so you might be quite real. Okay, good. Do I know that you're an authority in this topic? Well, how can I know that? Oh, you're linking to a number of different businesses that I know, or sites that I know are authorities. So, oh, you've got some links there, so you're probably an authority as well. So it's this whole big world to get you up the list. But there are some small changes you can do yourself. And one of those that I think everyone needs to make sure is in place is that they have their Google My Business set up. And that's a free listing with Google. It's a lot of people only do it because they think I'm a local business, so I should have it. And it is important in that respect. But it also works in with your organic SEO. So if you get better at your local SEO, which is Google My Business, you get better at the organic. So it kind of works off each other. And I've got a video, if you don't have your Google My Business set up, on my YouTube channel, which is Automate Now. And you can go through the steps on how to set up your Google My Business.
Yeah, fantastic. And of course, for those of you who are watching the live stream, you would see me clicking through some of those tips, 7 tips, which I think is really valuable. And it's like what we said earlier, just continue to implement one thing and then the next thing and then the next thing. And before you know it, if you continue to do that consistently, you'll find that the content, especially if it's valuable content, I think that's still always very important, isn't it, Nici, that the things that you are sharing is at that expertise, that you are a trusted authority. That's so important too. So look, it's been absolutely wonderful speaking with you today, Nici. For those people who have said, okay, I need to speak with Nici, find out more about the work that she does, LinkedIn obviously is a place that they can connect with you, but what are some other ways that you encourage for them to reach out?
Okay, so Facebook is one of my Facebook and Instagram. I'm on there with the Automate. I'll point to the right thing. AUTOM, the number 8 NOW. That's at the end of my Facebook channel. That's my Instagram channel, and that's my YouTube channel. So you can link through there, or you can link on LinkedIn. And I'm NICI Bickley, Bickley on LinkedIn. So you can find me there quite easily and connect. I love connecting with people. I don't have to know you face to face, because I live in this global world of that I can connect with anyone across the world and do work across the world. So I love connecting with all of you.
which is wonderful. And of course, for those of you who have just joining us and now in the live stream, Nici, she is a self-proclaimed software nerd. She loves learning, and her goal in life mission is to help small business owners simplify software, social media, and SEO. We've been able to touch on that towards the end of the interview, but I love, Nici, how you've shared some personal insights, particularly around how you overcame challenges, your experience with depression, what you've done, what you continue to do. And I think that's such a fitting conversation, particularly for small businesses, many of them worldwide, experiencing a lot of challenges and tough times that we would not in a million years have ever thought that we would have to experience. And it's knowing often that other people have gone through certain things. Often we can find or feel, can't we, Nici, that I'm the only one who's going through this, and you don't really want to reach out and let anyone know, because it's like, how are people going to respond and react? In actual fact, you realize that there are many people there, and many people who would be more than willing to lend a helping hand and to be able to support. So thank you so much for what you do, your work, for helping us simplify what often businesses can seem overwhelming. You say it, I know, because I've been following you for a while on LinkedIn. You say it in very simple terms, and when we take action on what you have shared with us, I know that can make an impact with SEO and getting found for our business. So once again, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks very much, Anne-Marie. I've really enjoyed it.
This podcast is brought to you by theinfluencealliance.com. Want to influence real change with your message by becoming known as a trusted authority in your industry while building a sustainable and scalable business you love? Find out how by accessing our free podcast series at www.theinfluencealliance.com/podcast series. That's theinfluencealliance.com/podcast series.